This is Alex with Reportify Media, and I'm here with Chris. Maybe introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. My name is Christopher Halali. I'm the International Secretary of the American Communist Party, also High Bailiff of Orange County, Vermont.
I come from China. I think you've spent some time in China. Let's hear your thoughts on China, what you think of China.
Sure, of course. I spent 2 years from 2013 to 2015 studying at Huazhong Kujidashue. I studied Marxist Jushui, right, Marxist philosophy. And so for me, of course, China is at the forefront of really building a new world order. We know, of course, the history of China. China was, especially during the Qing dynasty, towards the end of the Qing dynasty, it was subject to 2 opium wars, to concessions, to European and regional powers like Japan coming in and carving up China. And so this period of humiliation for the Chinese people was followed by a period we remember with Sun Yat-sen, and then afterwards with Chairman Mao, who really led the Communist Party to prominence, to victory, and ultimately to building China into a world power, into a power that it once had been. And the Chinese people have stood up and will never lay down again to anyone. And so I think that China today is the center of the building of a new world order, a multipolar world, or a polycentric world that many are calling it. And I think that understanding that, and understanding that the dream of Mao, the dream of Deng Xiaoping, the dream of now, Chairman Xi Jinping and everyone in between was really about building a prosperous China, a China that was not only economically advanced, but also one that played a large role in diplomacy. We've seen China mediate diplomatically between Saudi Arabia and Iran, bridging the gap after about a decade of diplomatic crises and political troubles. We've seen China play an active role in all the regions of the world. We've seen China developing Africa and Latin America and really pursuing a different form of development outside of the sanctions regime and the unipolar world and the US hegemony that has really defined the world since 1991. So ultimately, I think that China is a force to be contended with. It's a force now that nobody can challenge in that way. But China is not an aggressive power. China is interested in win-win cooperation, economic cooperation, diplomatic cooperation. So ultimately, my appeal to, of course, everyone in the world is, let's work together. This is China's goal. China's goal is to raise up the entire world together. But of course, we know that the Americans are not interested in this, the Europeans aren't interested in this, and this ongoing Sinophobia, just like Russophobia, is part of the problems that we see in the world order today. It's part and parcel of why we have US dollar hegemony, why we continue to have a buildup in the Pacific, right? We remember this pivot to the Pacific under Obama. And ultimately, the crisis that centers around some strategic parts and all the propaganda and disinformation of the West about certain areas in China and certain people in China are used as a way to try to split China apart. Just like some want to split Russia apart, they want to split China apart. They don't believe in its territorial integrity. But we have to continue to fight to preserve these nations, especially to defend China, just like we do Russia. And my hope is that we can continue to show the truth about China, the truth about the Chinese people, who are one of the most peace-loving, wonderful and hospitable people I have ever had the pleasure of living with.
Now, Chris, let's wind this up on a question that is pretty complex. Has the world rewarded you for your hard work to educate us on what is really going on in this world, or have you have to sacrifice something for that?
Sadly, in the West, having these kinds of positions and political outlooks is dangerous for Western countries. So I have been subjected since especially 2013 when I was a China government scholar and got to go to Wuhan to study. I've been subjected to detainment by the authorities, right, Department of Homeland Security. I've been subjected to FBI raids. I have been under immense surveillance. And I think that when we speak truth to power, when we confront those in power who want to maintain their hegemony, ultimately we become threats. And so I haven't done anything wrong. I've never lifted up arms against the US government or any other European country. But ultimately, what we've seen is we've seen a systematic, sort of surveillance and oppression of different voices, different activists, different theorists who really just want to have a new world order, who want to have a new situation for the people of the world, especially the oppressed, the global south, right? And when you look at that, just like our ancestors who fought in the communist and socialist movements, what you have is really a situation where we have become persona non grata. We have become people who are threats to national security in the United States, in Europe, in other countries like Australia and New Zealand. So for me, I have sacrificed a lot, but I will not stay silent because I know the truth. I've lived in these places, I've met wonderful people, and ultimately I will continue to challenge the hegemony of the powerful who continue to oppress the majority of the world. And I believe that everyone should be hand in hand together, this friendship and solidarity that we want to see everybody rise together. This is what I continue to fight for, and I will continue to pursue this even if it costs me my freedom or my life.
Chris, where can our Chinese audience and international audience find your work?
So you can find my work on X at Chris Halali, and also you can continue to follow me on different platforms where I share my research, especially Covert Action Magazine.